Good evening. I'd like to call the Northfield Township Planning Commission meeting for July 16th, 2025 to order. And I'd like to have everybody stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to me and justice for all. Excuse me. Here.
Mr. Gordon? Here. Mr. Kennedy?
Present.
Mr. Stanleycha?
Present. And I'd like to make one alteration to our agenda as it's listed here. I'd like to move 11. The person that's here for that in front of us have to wait for that. Support by Ms. Chick. Those in favor? All right, thank you. All right, we have a call of the public. Attention to what's happening there. 3 minutes. Please state your name. Microphone's on. Okay. All right. Anybody like to come up and speak? Could you raise the mic up? Thanks. Because when it recognizes your voice, it'll actually.
Market, the design of the initial pool in downtown. One of our design concepts that was a major part of the development presented several different high-end kind of markets that do have fuel to proceed. We don't want to get down the road too far as plan, and even if you're going to proceed, our plan is kind of taking a step forward.
Thank you very much. Correspondence we have from Ann Arbor Township Planning Commission, a distribution of their for public input and community input. So if anybody would like to look at that.
It's in the notice, yeah.
But I know that, but if I vote for the public, that please contact Julie. All right, any questions on that? Okay.
Sorry, I'm unprepared. Basically hit on the highlights because we have had 3 meetings, 25, 26. The board also accepted the resignation of Ms. The board awarded a construction bid of $1,400,000 for filter improvements. Funds will be paid from the wastewater treatment plant funds of the trench to provide a dry service for laying sewer in segment Q, which is in the park area. The mobile gas station on the corner, continue with the upgrade on the rest of the trunk and delay the work at the park until the leak and mitigation is resolved. The board accepted the new township manager employment agreement. The board also approved Vitrano conflict hearings for PUDs and conditional uses and revised the requirement, which actually is done at a cost of $160,000, $130,000 for furnace replacements at the community center. On Jones, CBA appointment was made and.
All right, thank you.
ZBA has not met since our last meeting.
All right, very good. We don't have a Park and Recs rep at this point, so.
On the master plan.
All right, thank you. August 6 for proposed addition to existing single-family dwelling, Whitmore Lake Downtown District. It's a single-family residential. Is Ms. Christianen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Member within the Whitmore Lake Downtown District. There is a little bit of history to this project. Large on the rear of this parcel that received administrative approval to create an apartment unit on top, which is a principal owner of the existing dwelling. At the time, single-family dwellings were not received a variance in order to construct the proposed addition, which the zoning ordinance does have provisions. Construction within 180 days, the variance expires. So the variance on the first floor subject to conditional land use approval. And now the applicant they need to follow the process at this time. Get conditional land use approval, recommendation from the Planning Commission to maintain the building line, which is based upon the location of the existing buildings along that side of the back. But the applicant will have ample opportunity should they want to expand closer to main. Our building is conforming with all the setbacks. The existing garage, which is not being touched. With regard to access and circulation, there is an existing driveway off Main Street, which goes straight on the north side. Areas must be paved either with asphalt or concrete. The applicant need to retain the gravel driveway as it currently exists, and they do mixes on the rear of the dwelling, 2 of which are required for the apartment unit that's above the garage, have shrubs and some decorative landscaping, which they irrigate. There's no automatic sprinkler. Properties that are developed in the WLDD are, which have an west and to the south. The site does have an existing 5 to 6 encroaching on the apartment complex's property, and that they do have an easement that allows for that encroachment. Trash pickup is residential trash pickup. There are no information on detail of what the fixture looks like. Now, for the WLD construction, as I previously mentioned, this is a home that was built in 1900. It is a pre-war structural facade that faces Main Street. It's got siding. It does not have this. If you look at the sides of the building, there are windows. You cannot add windows into bathrooms or other areas where it's not going to be practicable. Architecture of the building as it existed, so it's staying historically true to what the requirements, however, is that a pedestrian connection needs to be provided from the public sidewalk. It would be our recommendation that the Planning Commission grant a modification from providing that sidewalk connection be installed from the sidewalk on Main Street all the way to the front entrance to provide the required connection. So typically they're used to submitting plot plans, not full drawings, which sealed drawings with the required details that we need in order to complete our consider a recommendation on the conditional land use and a recommendation and take action on the site plan. I'd be happy.
Conditional land use application for 9411 North Main Street project for August 6th. Please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. So motion carries. Unfinished business, which is the master plan discussion. Is that going to be a projection there, the building? Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to connect into it.
Wi-Fi connection, the password would be 8350 main, M-A-I-N, all yours. So 8350
It won't, are you on, is it all connected in? Yeah. Great. Yeah, can you speak into the mic closer? Just, it's not picking up your voice. Sure, sorry. There we go.
Green now, hopefully, when looking at the master plan review throughout this year, is that the township's best served on public forums, other meetings throughout the township. We believe that preserving the natural beauty of residential development outside of specific locations around the lakes and downtown areas, suburban sprawl, preserving undeveloped natural areas is highly important to our voter support. I would mention that that's just 56% of residents who are willing to approve them, and are very important to preserve the natural floodplains, woodlots, and open spaces throughout our town. Place dots based on the importance of rankings of what they felt the township should be solved by this. More rooftops and people do not necessarily solve economic strain on the township resources. So you add so many new rooftops, you now have more people to police the roadways and pollution to our atmosphere. I would mention about congestion. I went through downtown tonight at rush hour. Prosperity to our downtown businesses, and already most of our residents commute when they're going to work. They end up spending their money there and time there, and they just come back home to lay their property owners in our township. So those who are living near property, next to a property that's zoned as one thing, it should remain like that. And it still allows development, but within the bounds of by that parcel, you should expect it to be remained as zoned like that. A medium between those two. We offer a lot of open space agricultural, with the majority of that being zoned as no large pressure to, for some reason, build everything up right now. Our proposal to the PC would be to eliminate the language that allows for residential growth beyond the sewer. Is something we don't like to see, because where does that stop? You add on one adjacent parcel and now the rest are adjacent parcels and densities and their descriptions at that time. And then when we see density calculation, why should the density calculation be completed on 100 acres if only 30 acres of that is actually and more likely retain people to our township? In any commercial, text, call me, my info's there and in your packets, and have some citations at the end if you want to look. Yes?
I don't have any questions.
How'd that happen? You think existing overlay district densities and descriptions,
before there, where when you start thinking the densities across these township properties, they should be reworded. Yep.
I just want to make a couple questions. That ends up being a township board directive. They already voted authority to put wording in that contradicts what the township.
Present that to the Board of Trustees.
So right now, under our zone, so what we're actually working on is we're working on changing areas, as you're describing, leapfrogging things that you're probably describing. So
Yeah.
it's what they passed.
Sure. I would like to see some wording.
Problem is that there's nothing that's ever static and now somebody else can change it and redo it, just like we're redoing the map from being changed in the future. So what the best we can do is try and be defensible. So in case for some reason that somebody, a developer or something decides they're going to challenge us. The other thing too is people keep making comments about putting subdivisions. That I hate hearing that language because that's so, if you keep constantly saying that's where we want it to go, but there's actually no place to put it, what's the point?
I think there's a concern always with development up by 23 is everyone's going to get on right there and go north or south.
I just think we keep pushing something that's never going to happen. There's no place to put it.
Why would that not be available for residential development?
It's not in the Hamlet area though. It's the expressway. And it's also zoned something commercial. It's not.
We know that.
But see, I dispute that.
Well,
Scientific survey, since that's been developed, the last for 2008. Since 2008, so the election of 2008, 2012, 2016, I know the mentality. They've put on people that they really have a concern about this. I don't think it's the majority.
Township.
Well, I'm not saying that there aren't people that want to see preservation. I'm just saying is that preservation is important, but development. And if we do this right, this plan for development will help protect the areas that, and we're taking that into consideration. Just that, the way they want things to look. And said, if we do this right, it'll end up protecting everybody.
Putting together all this information, but I do have two comments. I mean, you are talking the 2012 master plan. It was done through a mailing, and it was done online. The question was, what was the three worst features of Northfield Township? And one of them, nobody likes a tax burden, right? And then what was most important to, which was huge. It was actually the highest percentage of people voted for that one. Minimum. And then single-family homes in subdivision. Yes, preservation is very important. Everybody in the township wants preservation. Everybody have a master plan that allows for, it is every aspect of what makes a community to make it viable and healthy. Also, I just want to mention this, as it wasn't done right, not their fault, and the board and the planning commission did not turn out very well. So, yeah, I just want to mention that. And then I had another, just as being unsightly, and that's kind of what we did here on this page. You might not like it, personal preference. I don't know that people do or they.
So speaking to that survey, I also saw that there was a decent amount in there about wanting better residential years ago at this point now. So probably a lot's changed. I don't know if it's something the PC has or sure. Well, we wanted to get in here and just open some communications with you guys at the beginning.
legitimate?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
But I was, yeah, well, you go ahead.
3 dots and place it against their 3 major priorities. Pick up entire box full of dots, and the dots went all over the place, is skewered. Because we could not, I mean, while we were addressing somebody, we were assigned, some might have put as many as 6 or 10, and if one item was their priority, I mean, if somebody ration on just the findings of that 1 dot thing, as Trustee Chick said, it.
Here, because I think we're all pretty much actions. In the debate that we're having right now, both management around the interchange and revitalizing the Hamlet area, those are like all on the same page, because those 3 things, so it doesn't spread uncontrolled, it doesn't go out into the agricultural areas. Not talking about polar opposites. Now, when we for the land preservation, right? One of which is partially floodplains and so forth. Vidya just helped have a funded purchase of development rights program So, you know, as long as they're 16, that gives breaks for, tax breaks for active farmers. We have 2 zoning districts that basically are applied in the bay. We also have the Recreation and Conservation District. It's the land preservation group's position that we, in order to help preserve farms, to what you're looking to do. Great, glad to hear that. Yeah.
All right. The thing is that they really don't have any other input other than we even came up here. We're working on addressing the issues you've already, some capacity or another township governance. And that the no growth right now, I think that was an exact, I'm still a pro-growth person. However, I don't like these that from continuing, and I think we understand what we need to do.
People are afraid that we're going to, because we've heard this before, turn into Canton or South Iron or Brighton, that is where we're going to be for a very long time right now, unless somebody wants to pay, going to happen, because it probably won't. But we can, as we've actually been talking about changing some lands and natural features, so I think that we're on a good path. He wants the same thing, it's just putting it in writing, so.
Mr. Gordon?
A survey was done before I was ever involved in the township. What's really interesting, a couple years later, they built this place. So a lot of what is industries with this survey in terms of dots and who was able to put them up, but was supported by the 2010 survey, the 2012 survey. It's been said in the 96 survey, and it's pretty much to say that of the residents coming out in 2004 and overturning a rezoning of the Leland property. It was the stops at that intersection. And I don't think if we did a survey of our residents that there'd be any support for putting in almost, but to pretend that it won't happen because we don't have the, and by this planning commission to try to reword, which is a little development's fine around the downtown area, but based on all the surveys that have been done for the last 25 years.
Yep.
Mr. Jackson, let's move on.
I need the.
Got it all switched right, so I'm saying, you're looking over here, it's like,
Oh, here we go. All right. So first of all, in the way Planning Commission at our last work session, we heard an effort to align the township's policies with we get the ship headed in the right direction and focusing on that, and then also introduce Jacob Van Boxel, who municipal management, to working on plans similar to this, the team. Also, Noah, who you met at our last aspects of this particular master plan update, and that is you don't overburden that infrastructure and make sure that community, when it comes to navigating some of these tricky, either of us. So we want to go over basically 4 things to the land use plan. We want to talk about how it affects the infrastructure, and then we also want to get your input on, again, I want to emphasize the fact that the scope of this project is extreme. Number one is, and all these have to do with spaces. So that's a multitude of things, not just farmland, but also the limited infrastructure that we have, and that we continue to focus. And then finally, we've heard a lot of discussion about what is rural character. We need to define that so that the Planning Commission and Township Board aren't left to make a very compelling presentation. So we need to make sure we get these recommendations with respect to you.
I just want to, in this introduction, and I'd written down in master plan language so that they all end up meeting. And I think
Talk about that a little bit down the road here.
That's relating to this right here, which is the page and see what it looks like, and including these three bullet points. And I would offer to,
Back that the Land Preservation Committee had, they had comments on several pages throughout the game plan. We've got a very focused game plan. Aspects of what
I think people, when we talk about plan, not a definition of growth, because growth isn't just building. I see that I'm looking for Northfield Township, not necessarily building people, that this just isn't about building buildings.
this revisiting of the master plan is,
What I would suggest is you wait and see what we've come up with, and if there's other things that we may need to adjust or not. But,
I spent 6 hours going over and over your changes,
make changes.
which is why I made a comment about the first page, and I think there's nothing,
For us to look at here, you're going to incorporate things and the language is going to come
Yeah.
out later.
In
So I don't know that we all brought our master plan with us as we look to see where the.
Yeah, and again, I would suggest they've given, you want to include, we went over every single comment, and again, the 4 issues that I laid out, which includes,
People are saying, all right, so we don't need to go through bullet point by bullet point.
and believe me, I won't.
I know, Joanne.
Yep. Okay, in communities, as you know, Ann Arbor Township just in any way really affect things on our boundary with them. So I don't see, first kick this project off. If there are things in these statements, areas that we talked about, preservation, infrastructure, looked at it, and I believe that those have been sort of the benchmarks and the foundations of the important of the township.
And the other thing, I want to make sure that the last few years, so that we can make this, listen, more.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
Yep.
Hi. So, given to us, and I missed it, I apologize. But as a community goal and plan, that the focus is along US 23 and the interchanges and right cars and what have you, that apply to the entirety of the township.
With the policies, right? And policies are, we want to identify things that we have done in the past, as well as what we plan to do. Amendment with the preservation concept, and I'll talk a little bit more, and we'll definitely mention that as ways that the township has, we're working towards that preservation.
Mr. Chair, I'd add preservation to first sentence number 2. Is that the extent of
It's an attempt to,
what happens in this meeting and go back to look at the plan again?
hear other suggestions, and I know you've got some, and the
Yeah.
Land Preservation Committee has some.
Yeah.
So,
A very long evening, and I would hope that I could word and preservation to how to use this plan and what this plan contains. Really seems preservation is the priority of the community as opposed.
Right, preservation is going to be part of that. This isn't a preservation plan, and preservation can't be the
expense of
priority of the
anything
plan.
I guess that's really plan, because it's more than just where are we going to do development, change the name from a growth management plan. I disagree with you. It's not simply,
Yep.
things that aren't included that you want to include, we're obviously open to, again, these are consistent right out of the existing plan. Go back through these, and if they need to be reinforced, we agreed with was when it talked about the existing land use pad is the major roadway that links Northfield Township to both Ann Arbor and Brighton. We heard that again today. But I don't think post some alternative language that says the township's land use pattern is defined by significant commercial areas adjacent to US 23. A lot of these are legacy, smaller lots around the lakes. That's very clearly defines the township. Those are the existing land. So I think that is an attempt to make sure that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Other things have been preserved, and we've actually taken a different approach on the future land use plan that we're going to.
chart shows the changes in the land use over the past several years. Where is that?
Also in chapter 4, it talks about other plans that have been done. Plans were done in this plan. So for instance, for the North Village area. But it's not an all or nothing. 2 areas within the property that's reserved for future development.
Where does this, I was just asking if the, Yes.
Land use
okay,
plan.
all right, okay.
Yeah, actually, the acre, it's all that one spot there at the north, it's commercial, proposed, it's not anymore.
So there's a new plan?
Commercial area at the north end, yep,
So this is gone?
yep.
Because I didn't know exactly where it fit into the package because they were all, the maps were at the end. It's in color that I'm having a hard time determining which one is which, and I don't know if we're going to be using anything like this map. What is undeveloped natural area? Is that defined somewhere? Is that a county designation? Or
No,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gordon. Yeah, so when we were doing the existing land use analysis, we were factoring it as being used for recreation or conservation purposes, or what's just vacant. Some of those other categories like woodlands or grass and shrub, because we wanted something that was a little bit more acting at things like wetlands, woodlot coverage, prime farmland, anything wetland, wetlands, floodplain, things like the golf courses, existing easements, and different pieces of property like that. So with that, it was to say it is undeveloped, but it's likely to remain visually be developed, or were previously buildings that have been demolished, things like that.
existing land use.
Sorry, but I just wanted to clarify that. That's a good question. Thank you.
thanks.
All right, go ahead.
First part of this presentation, so we understand that there's some things in Chapter 4 that are no longer applicable. So goals and policies.
Before we jump to the bottom right,
Chapter
it would seem to me this would be a really good place to mention, and it would be really great if in the map that we generate, that we could see a lot of preserved properties on our southern border, for instance, in Ann Arbor Township. And
policy issues that we need to address in community goals and policies. Number one are trying to clarify what development looks like in the commercial areas, and I think it's critical if that's the same interchange off 23 and 59 up north, or somewhere along Grand River and Brighton or Howell project. That's one of the things we want to make sure we address, is what is rural character and landscaping, and say, yes, when I drive down Whitmore Lake Road or North Territorial, I want to see that and not something that belongs in Novi policy. I think it would be appropriate that out of this plan, some loose policy about expansion that can get us in a difficult situation of having an expansion plan. And again, go ahead.
No, I think some of our policy,
One of the things that, I know we've talked about this, and we're going to get to it, the existing land use map, but we've talked about how to control some of this. It was going to end up helping to reinforce our vision based upon our map.
Yep, so, which brings us to the future land use plan, which is what you're talking about. So this is the future land use plan, which basically lays out where we want to see, where we want to manage development appropriately in areas where we want to encourage development. Really what this does is it really cinches up try to mirror existing zoning in this future land use plan, so it aligns the zoning that people currently had, so we're not looking at downzoning anything or any future development to make sure it aligns with the plan. And on this plan, which you all got a copy of, even that area is tighter than what is currently out there, right? No?
I wouldn't say smaller, it's just, so, for example, it's kind of generally
A question on these colors, this off to the east, are those already currently?
something entirely different, because in the master plan, under the future land use plan, that don't appear here at all.
Yeah, you're looking at, so what gives, right?
Yeah, is out there that have been rezoned from ag, that are not represented in the 2019 map?
Right.
So we can't look at this map and figure it's accurate?
Especially if the development doesn't meet the agricultural standards, right? So it's basically something to encourage any expansion of low-density residential in this area. We're simply reflecting,
This
We
map-
knew it was wrong.
This map was not reflective
Right.
of what it is that was, so I mean, that's why we're trying to get this stuff so it's
why we're-
accurate.
correctly, this reflects the current development. Lots that wouldn't meet the agricultural designation, but they are all developed. So,
That's the better term.
as opposed to, what did I say?
Developed. Developed denotes that there's been a
Have done is, all those light yellow areas you have seen, we have mirrored what the exact current land use pattern there is. By doing lot size in the ag is 5 acres. By mirroring exactly what the current land use and as such on the future land use plan.
Okay, thank you very much. That helps. As you go down Whitmore Lake Road,
We're going to change that to agriculture.
oh, okay.
It's in the sewer district.
Our zoning for ag prevents sewers from going into ag.
They're already
These
existing.
are already there.
I understand.
'Cause
Understand.
We want something, putting up a ice cream stand there once the state sells it.
All right,
So we want, it's more,
okay. Fair enough.
the unique distinguishing characteristics of the township is that you have very small waterfront lots than your other medium-density residential areas and things of that nature. So if in the future we decide to have a separate zoning district that allows for the type, I call it out, medium-density residential, high-density residential, manufactured, those are all pretty much. The other major change in the future land use plan is we got rid of the commercial area. The industrial stays the same. You can see sort of some weird agricultural features, wetlands primarily, that sort of thing. One of the reasons why we did that area is being used to calculate REU demand. You're accepting out unbuildable areas. Nobody, well, maybe a developer might try, but about this and make sure we're on the right track. But when he did his analysis, to most clearly reflect what is actually developable. Okay.
That you have in your
I
packet.
want to finish this up and then we can go on.
Okay, thank you.
Coming in, based on what's in the pipeline, that sort of thing. This plan was, what do we do with the recreationally owned or voluntarily designated from a zone? I don't anticipate the township going out and initiating rezoning are fairly restricted, as you can tell by the name. So I don't see us, we created basically this other district that we call the natural and protected areas. All into the PA 116 program that have been preserved, that are publicly owned, that have natural, that those are the areas of highest priority for preservation, okay? So we're sensitive or valuable in terms of preserving, but master plan.
So
I've got the acreage in a sec.
I'm going to point out one,
Your property.
yeah,
Is part of your property wetland or something? Let's find out.
Yeah, okay.
What the disconnect is, and then we may have to refine that a little bit.
okay.
But
I'm just,
Into this category because it says less than 10% developable land. Under,
So the basis for that, that's 10%. So this, we can tweak this obviously just with how we can determine what could be that because of natural areas. We want to look at anything that can't be full.
let me rephrase that real quick. So there's a parcel line here that's hatched. It may
Not, the future land use plan doesn't, or the future land use map rather, doesn't follow L part of the gross property is enrolled in a private easement. So we were factoring that.
That also applies up to areas like here, or in the last meeting that we talked about. But when we said we wanted to change this commercial, we talked about a different type of development. That's my wife trying to get it with me. It's different.
Part of it is what do you got? Agricultural open space. It's a golf course. So no, because it's not, there's wetland in it, but not the whole thing. And so,
Man, it'd be nice to have a large version.
No, closer to 20.
around it is the golf course.
I'm,
Okay.
Right.
Well, and for the hatching, the hatching isn't necessarily just to say that it's, completely prohibited, that it, floodplains, wetlands, factors in, woodlands, and then to say it can't be developed on, it's just saying that there are enough natural features there. I guess for lack of a better term, it's more likely that it could be protected.
And let me clarify that in the agricultural area, appropriate on different sites. So some sites might be appropriate for targeting those areas with the PDR program. We might have to rely on.
you don't have to get bogged down on it, but that's the reason I brought up my parcel. It's like when you start to become, when you try to become, and when we're doing this stuff, it's not an absolute. So,
No, it might only mean that when they come in to put a house on it, you only get one because there's so much other constraints on there. Those are the kind of things. The thing in the future land use plan is, as I mentioned, we got rid of the mixed use area, which previously aligned is we basically, and we'll talk more about this in the zoning plan, but for territorial, we're emphasizing the fact that those focus on those design issues and not deal with land use issues. To more of design issues as opposed to land use issues. We want the land use issues to be crystal clear. So,
Can I ask a question about?
I'm sorry, one more thing before you do. So I mentioned that we changed in their community with respect to their land use policies along here. But what I did notice is that we may see some pressure on these lots right here off of Pontiac Trail.
This parcel is right here.
Is that the high school? Yeah. So one of the things that we didn't want to commingle municipal facilities on there because, the land that was never going to get developed. It's something that we want to see protected and preserved. And in the case of the school, what happens at the districts? So that seemed to be the most appropriate.
Thank you.
In your packet. But what I wanted to show here in this chart is there is approximately 16,000 acres of, pretty significant increase in areas that are by a significant amount, almost 50%. And the aspect of the community. Other changes, we got rid of the mixed use area. That was about 334. I'm sorry. Well, because of the change from mixed use, we increased. Mr. Gordon? I'm sorry. So by and large, what we did in this policy document is we significantly increased, and we also reduced the amount of areas designated for development.
Where is the mixed?
It's basically all these red areas right here are currently.
By that point.
Correct.
Whereas if it was mixed use, it was potentially.
The slide you had, because this, I couldn't understand it. First, I don't know what that's helpful to understand.
Good.
Because this one, appreciate the
So are we headed in the right direction?
direction, yes.
All right, great. I thought you might like it. I thought all of these before. We've had a lot of these discussions about what these characteristics are. These are probably some of the image, get much definition on some of these residential areas, especially the larger lot stuff. People are out there in 5, 10 acres. They can, pretty much do what they want. But when
If we're trying, Mr. Chair, we're trying to get rid of contradictions here. When I'm looking at your page 24, air compatible use like cluster residential, I thought agriculture within the entire description of the agricultural area that refers to residential.
making sure that we can translate this into defensible zoning, or some degree of clustering You know, with your splits, right, you could have two-acre lots and preserve forever, as opposed to, hey, you having two 5-acre lots that could get, you know, all that kind of stuff that really takes away from what you're trying to accomplish, and that is keeping of clustering. It's just a matter of making sure we don't count things like that, and make sure it's, you know, a fair trade-off between the land that gets preserved and
So we've always had cluster residential in our ag area since it's back as far as we're fine with it. But I did look at the Ann Arbor Township master plan, which is incredibly.
Underneath the pictures here for appropriate land use sewer demand. Okay, all right.
because, again, this was one of the, I'll get to it.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Let's see, scooch through here. Here's the existing nations correspond with zoning districts, okay? Most of it is pretty clear. Agriculture is really not something that the township is in a position to go out and initiate rezonings to. If someone wants to rezone it to that cultural designation. So there's really not a lot gained by that, but it's a good placeholder. The areas, the overlay area, agricultural, recreation, conservation, and all the other features through developer donations and contributions and things like that. So there's a lot of other options to the Whitmore Lake North Territorial overlay areas to emphasize that it's not going to be rural landscape pattern and that sort of thing. You know, in terms of the building orientation and things like that, but I'm really envisioning in Taylor or anything in between. It's really what's gonna unite that, but really defines the character of that intersection.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, you're on page, because I'm really confused about the whole concept of low density. The developer came out and wanted to buy it. I think he found 2 test holes that worked. Going to need sand, which is a premium commodity in condominiums. Without sewers, how are they going to do any of this?
Well, they can get sewers now.
All of the low-density residential areas that are outside of the sewer district are currently developed.
Private wastewater treatment plant as well, if they're able to.
Yeah, already improved.
In other words, people already have houses on them.
Yes.
All right.
The soils won't
That's right.
support it.
That was an
you know.
inconsistency
Yeah.
with the previous land use plan that.
Well, that is. There was so much low-density residential, and that's
So it still exists, but it's just for definition purposes because there's no land that's going to.
We've had the workshop at the Planning Commission. We've gotten input from the land preservation. We'd like to put something on the township's website and distribute it that gives people a visual preference survey to.
There's a number of pages all the way from 25 to 49, which I assume are in the master plan, which deals with the municipal sewer expansion policy. One there, in order to promote orderly growth, only areas adjacent to and contiguous to the current, that is going to get changed? Okay. Because it wasn't.
Consistencies to sort of close the door open or any loopholes that we might see in the existing language.
point we can add in or change.
Right, we just wanted
Okay.
to wanted to share what the land preservation committee is talking about and incorporated those as well as.
Or expansion ordinance, and so we'll be working on that.
Something, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just changing the screens over so you can, now people can see you.
Okay. So you're the planners. Would it be appropriate or would it idea that the current, by definition, probably means specific?
Well, let me put it this way. You don't want to say that we're willing to change our land use pattern if someone.
What I want perspective, I'm talking about what's the best policy?
Your infrastructure to support it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's like, is there a wording?
This will have the policy, miss the big reveal, on the amount of REUs that were going to be generated by accurate. So we want to put together our land use,
I'm sorry, what?
the sewer district.
The ability to add 10,000
No,
rooftops.
not add 10,000. That's how many are to the north, from Green Oak that we're obligated to run into our system.
Okay, that's what you meant. The document that you had up here that is not in our package, you'll make that available to the one?
Yep.
Okay. It's when we're going to see something on the township website so that people can start getting involved in the process, because to me, the process yet.
So as the changes that like I said before, we're not redoing this document. So this plan will be subjected to the 90-day review process. So during that process, that we're going in the right direction. That's the kind of public input that we're looking for, as well as more.
We'll be announcing it to the public that it's here to look at. Will there be a summary of the changes of?
They don't have to read through the whole thing.
Okay.
So there's plenty of time to get this finished, yep.
No, that's October, right?
A separate meeting with the township board, but I think where we're at now is changes
So
for you to take a look at.
The entire document with you guys.
You guys can take a look at it, and when you're okay with it, and you approve it for distribution, then we'll send it to the township board with a cover letter summary and be able to continue with the process.
Yeah, so if they have any, to clarify some of the things, but I think that a lot of the things we've been talking about have been, I think there's going to be a big disagreement. I don't even think with the public that they're going to have an issue with what we're doing.
Presented to us back in May and see how it relates, because add or do some tweaks to. I appreciate the work that's been done by happening at the North Territorial area with all the development going on there. That's not what you call slow and steady growth. That's like a big chunk. And so I'm very concerned as to. So thank you. Oh, also, when you put these together, can you happen? And, it's just a small thing.
The next one's going to be the whole document.
And to make sure, because we had some conflicts previously with the other master plan about our ordinances not aligning thing for the, rural character. Is that going to be an ordinance, or is that going to be a?
We've done a lot of piecemeal things over the last few years. Residential, and a lot of the residential districts which have a density in the zoning ordinance that I get this density if I'm served by sewer and I'm immediately adjacent to the sewer.
Position again where people are coming and say, well, the master plan says.
Allow for uses which the township no longer wants to
Yes.
see here.
Correct.
But as long as it's in your zone, like John says, to do a technical review of the ordinance and remove some uses that might no longer be appropriate for the community, because
A point where you're going to be looking at what.
be appropriate for the community because
A point where you're going to be looking at what the changes we've made in our master plan and what are we going to do for this year.
Yes.
And because I think that needs to come before a lot of out at some point to us as we're going along in approving this, here's
the technical review of the zoning ordinance. We go through the zoning ordinance from the beginning till the end, and we point out every single section of the ordinance that zoning ordinance might not necessarily be aligned. So it'll basically set forth a list of everything in your authority.
So I'm going to ask if you can end up, while we're going through this, we can already know what we need to tackle moving on, rather than having a time frame that kind of sits there.
Difficult to do. There is a cost involved in this review, so we're going to have to bring it.
So bits and pieces, the ordinance takes a lot longer to fix, because every time you fix something, you've got to make sure that there's a master plan and the zoning ordinance is in sync with the master plan, not struggling with reconciling the two.
We need to apply, even though it's not necessarily what we want to necessarily have happen. Really wanted to see there, but the hands are tied in approving that because it's down in our ordinance that this is allowed, so you can't really.
Is that technical review done before the planning or the
The review of the ordinance doesn't obligate you.
reverse engineer into the master plan to make sure that you've got everything set up so you can fix it in the zoning ordinance.
Is there any plan to have the public come in and go over the plan, or do like we have in the previous time? Like,
Going to have that 90-day review period to give us their comments. That's going to be the primary opportunity. So there's the online survey, right, that they're going to be able to take.
so no get together.
Of the entire, when you're going to do a whole new master plan, and we're not doing that, definitely, but,
But we are making substantial changes. Yes?
which is why they have,
Overall vision for the township. So it's not like we're going out and trying to create a second downtown, but we're really minimizing I'm not dismissing that. And again, we got 3 opportunities. We've got the online survey for the community character time.
and people always have the option to come in any of our meetings here and
Oh,
speaking
yeah,
out.
they're
So, I
always
mean-
so well attended.
Well, I'm just saying that ends up, has a definite input on things, if they choose to do that.
You sending one out because there was so much infighting as to what the survey actually asked. Question's going to be, and how's that going to work?
Okay, I want to be clear. It's really strictly a visual preference survey, online visual preference survey. Then, during the 90 days, they'll have the opportunity to do a thorough review of North Territorial. I wouldn't hold your breath, but, they could. So they'll have, we can work with whatever communication avenues that you have and get the word out.
So it'd be something where you can
Absolutely.
contact people. Okay.
Yeah, and we can use your social media to get the word out.
To prove your residency or your location?
Yeah.
Pinpoint, and they're both sites, they're like SurveyMonkey and similar sites like that that have those kinds of security features. So have too much reach that strangers can use it. So we'll do what we can to make sure that happens.
I think, so we're going to move on to approval of the preceding minutes. Those would be for June 4th and adopted by, if,
Northfield Township Planning Commission minutes of regular meeting.
so we have a motion by Ms. Chick and a second by Mr. Zarzaki. Is there any discussion?
Oops, sorry.
18th meetings due to,
I'm a big fan of having public. We would have about where they want property for quarter acre residential. That happened through the 2004. Essentially, the people certainly did happen. So I'm just, the direction that we're moving in, I don't think fits any vision that's ever been put forward in this community.
Oh. No comments. Ms. Chick?
Welcome, Mr. Kennedy, to the Planning Commission. Appreciate your presence here.
I mean, this is important stuff.
Mr. Zarzaki?
Again, just happy to have a full.
And I just want to dovetail in there too. Mr. Kennedy, welcome. If you have any questions, contact presentation, Mr. Jackson. I think it was right in where we were aiming for. So prayers, their sacrifices on a daily basis are what's allowing us to have our freedoms and our ability to have these open communications. All right, so I won't be here. So
We'll be here.